Yeah, that was nobody's never asked me that, bro.
And that wasn't planned.
That was from some.
I know, but you see, and again, like I respect you as an artist, as a friend, as a guest, but I'm also as a person of media. I gotta ask you the hard questions. What's going on, guys? Luis Guzman. I'm an artist, not a salesman. Podcast episode 23 with my brother Jamai is live right now. Welcome to season 3 of I'm an Artist, Not a Salesman podcast, where we highlight the journey of entrepreneurs and business people alike to showcase that every light and dark moment creates a beautiful piece of art. This is episode 23. I am your host, Luis Guzman. I have a first-time return guest in the building. His name is Jamai. He is a talented singer who is also a successful businessman with his own business, J Telegram Service, where he does live singing for any special occasion. He also was featured on The Voice season 14, where he was on Team Alicia Keys after he sang You Got It Bad by Usher and turned heads, literally. He released his project 23 in 2022 and has gotten critically acclaimed nods on a project that is both conceptual as well as personal. He has also recently released part 1 of his docu-series 23 on July 24th, with the second part coming this week, July 31st, where he pulls back the curtain on his personal trauma and vulnerabilities to help his fans understand a personal side of Jamai that has been dormant for many, many years. Jamai, welcome back to the show, brother. Welcome back, brother.
The best intro I've ever had in my life.
I'm humble. Stop, man.
He got the Club Shay Shay interview. you rivaling Club Shay Shay.
Man, listen,
man.
Shay Shay, I respect him, but we do it better.
I must say it was better, man. Thank you,
man,
bro.
no, thank you again for doing this. And you know, like when you reached out to me a couple weeks ago, I was humbled, I was honored. And you know, I'm thankful that you chose to come back to the platform, because your first interview was amazing. Just like getting the story, like the DNA, the beginning, the genetic of what you were as far as like before The Voice and everything. And now you flourishing after 23 with the project coming out. And now we're at the moment where kind of like a crossroads, right? Because you are ready to tell people about the more personal side, the trauma, the vulnerabilities that you kind of held back from last time.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Well, first, bro, I just want to thank you again for having me, bro. I was, you know, you reached out to me the first time and made the connection, and since then we've become family. You know, I got to sing at the wedding.
Yes,
you know,
yes, I forgot.
And you know, we've become family, and so definitely when I knew that I wanted to pull the curtain back just a little bit more. And introduce this next project, I knew I had to have you on board. So just thank you, man, for having me, and I'm happy to be here, bro.
Greatly appreciated, Jay. Greatly appreciate. And again, I forgot to talk about that. But yes, you were at my wedding. You sang for. I don't want to make it a love session about me. It's about you, but just to give the audience a little background and reference. You sang at my wedding, August 13th, 2022, one of the most special day of my life. You sang as my wife was walking down the aisle. You sang our first dance. And I mean, I'm getting emotional talking about it, but you will always hold a special place in my life for being there on the most special day of my life. So I appreciate that, brother.
It was 100%.
A pleasure. It was a pleasure. And my wife thanks you too.
Yeah.
Love you,
beautiful wife, beautiful family, and your wife got so many beautiful cousins.
Hey, you should have talked to them, man. I don't know what happened. I mean,
it was
all I could do is
the weddings where they be at, but I was like, jeez. But yeah, man, I'm thankful, and like I said, we family. So, bro, we just here to do it how we do it.
Love, bro. Appreciate that, man. You know, so speaking of family, I mean, this docu-series that you have, you know, just released part 1, and you got part 2 coming out July 31st, which is when this podcast will be released as well.
Cool.
Jay Wiz, no pressure. But we will make sure July 31st, this podcast will be out at the same time part 2 drops. I wanted to ask you, the first question I have in my notes here, what was the hardest part of shooting this documentary?
I think the hardest part of shooting a documentary was just the mere fact that a lot of times you process things mentally, but it's something about audibly speaking about it. It's something about putting it on wax that is more like confronting the trauma, almost re-traumatizing yourself at sometimes. and exhilarating at the same
It
time
could be
and
cathartic,
therapeutic
yeah.
at the same time. And so I think that was probably the best and worst part of it, yeah.
And you think doing this, right? Like before getting into, we're gonna get deeper into the documentary, but what was the genesis behind actually saying, you know what, I want to do a documentary?
So, as you know, just for some background of the audience, my mom was murdered when she was 23 years old. I was 6 years old. And so, at the time, just growing up and processing this grief throughout different stages of my life, has always been a challenge. However, when I started working on my album 23, the inspiration of that was I was approaching her 23rd death anniversary. And so I realized that she would have been gone for as long as she was alive. And so I was
Wow.
inspired to record 23 songs. And the initial idea was I was going to release a song a week for like 6 months, and the last song would be like on her anniversary. But I decided to just put it out as one project. 23 songs. The lead single of the song album is titled 23.
23.
Shannon's last words, which is her cause of death was exsanguination, which is the loss of blood. And I imagine what her last words or her last thoughts could have been in this song. And so that was the premise of the album. And so because my mom died from domestic violence, and because it was such a big story, I knew that I wanted to, before I released this project, I wanted to have certain conversations that I
Right.
wasn't able to have as a kid. I wanted to do some research and find some news articles and read autopsy reports and things like that, so that when I put this story out, I will know what I'm putting out exactly. And so in the process of that, I was inspired to create a documentary because, my mom had a witness to her murder. There was other officials that were involved and how justice wasn't served. There was my mom had been misrepresented in the media. So a couple of
Mm-hmm.
different things. I wanted to have those conversations. And then when I got into those conversations, I wanted to tell the true story.
Right.
And so the initial plan or the genesis of that was it would the documentary would accompany the album
Got
when
it.
all released.
Got
So
it.
what you're seeing and what the world is seeing is something that I did before the album's released, and it was supposed to come out with the album. But I think what did happen was I got a little overwhelmed and I got cold feet, and I was just, with all the new information I had found out about, with the conversations I had, I just needed more time to process that. Um, and right around that time, the album came out May 7th, 2022, which would have been my mom's 50th birthday.
Mm.
And just 3 weeks before the release, my grandfather passed.
Oh man.
And so
Yeah.
between like that and just all the things that came along with that, and this is around the time I was here, I was promoting
Yes, I
it,
remember. Yeah.
I was doing it, and it just was so much, and I was like, maybe at another time in my life, maybe at another point in my career, I'll finish this documentary. And so just maybe a few weeks ago, I was inspired. I ran across it and I said, this is the time. I
Yeah.
felt like this was the time to release it to the world. So what you got to witness and what you will witness and what the world is witnessing is what was the first part of a longer documentary. So what I decided to do was break that first part down
Mm-hmm.
into 2 episodes and call it a series.
Gotcha.
Because in essence, I mean, my life is a series, my grief is a series. There's no conclusion to this, you know what I'm saying? So I said I will release these 2 episodes as a series, and when I'm ready to continue this story,
It was
I'll
just cute.
continue it, because it's really hard to just put a period on it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a continuation to your point, a series, because life in itself is a series,
For
and
sure.
you want to make sure that after you found all this information out, which I feel, if correct me if I'm wrong, that the process must have been very grueling and difficult to look at autopsies, look at stories, look at newspaper clippings, and kind of revisit that pain. And I do feel that cold memories develop cold feet, and what I mean by that is that maybe gave you
Mm,
cold feet as to why you wanted to put the brakes on telling this story. But the
mm,
question I have for you, Jay, is what were the feelings like looking at the autopsy, looking at the stories, like doing the research of your own mother?
Well,
What was that like?
well, the interesting thing is like there wasn't a big chasm from what I believed or what I was told versus what I did research
Hmm.
on. I think a lot of it was, at 6 years old, everything was told to me, but how much could I process at that time? You know what I'm saying? When you six and then you 12 and you 14 and you 17 and you
Right.
18 and you 22, all those different ages, you have different perspectives, you have different things going on in your life, and you don't really have a macro point of view of it in a
Yeah.
sense. And I think now it wasn't so much that I didn't know what happened. It wasn't so much that um I wasn't aware. It was just
Facing it.
facing it. It was just I know what happened, but now I'm reading it in the autopsy report. I
Right.
know what happened, but now I'm actually reading the ER emergency rooms report. I know what happened, but now I'm actually confronting the judge that let my mom's murderer out 6 hours before he murdered my mom.
Yeah, I read that in
Uh
the clipping.
yeah, I know what happened, but the woman that actually witnessed my mom's murder, I'm actually going to sit down and talk to
Oh
her face
wow.
to face.
Okay.
So those conversations were
Yeah.
had, and so even though you know what happened, and consider that like maybe 5 or 6 years before I had these conversations, I've been preparing for them.
Right.
Meaning,
Right.
I know that there's a person that I can talk to, but I'm not ready to
You're
talk
not
to them
ready.
yet.
Yeah.
So I think just the anticipation and all of that angst of the moments finally happen, and then when you do talk to these people, it's like shit. I need to sit with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I need to sit with it and
Process.
and process it. And I think that's more so what it was more than anything. It wasn't so much as I learned groundbreaking information. It was I got more confirmations and then I got more details to put the story together in a contextual way. Um, to kind of fill in those little gaps, I feel like.
Gotcha, man. And I
So
can definitely see it with the first part that I saw, and
mhm.
again, looking forward to the second part. But the one thing you said that stuck out to me was I struggle with how much myself to reveal to the world.
Mm.
What's the most challenging part of vulnerability to you?
I think just that, like you as an artist,
Mm-hmm.
um, and as an artist, as a professional, as a businessman, that perception is such a big part of
Yes.
the success. With so many other businesses, yeah, public relations is a big thing, but with being an artist and a musician, how people perceive you is probably one of the defining metrics of your success. And
Yes.
that's not right. It's not fair, but it is a reality. And so me using my mother or being vulnerable to tell my actual true life story is such a thin line between that because it's really sacred for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my life, but it could be your entertainment. It's
Correct. I
my
understand what you're
life,
saying. Yeah.
but it's just a song to you for some. It's my life, but it's for the world to judge. When I put it in form of art. And the truth of the matter is that's just what true art is. That's
Mm-hmm.
what being an artist is all about. But that's just a scary thing. I use footage of my mom in this docu-series. And one, I'm blessed to have footage. But I wanted to be mindful of how much I use of her because I can't retract it. I can't go back in time and make more footage. So that's what I mean by I want the world to know her. I want the world to see how amazing she was and how beautiful her spirit is.
Yeah. She's.
But then I want to keep her sacred. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where that
It's like a dichotomy.
dichotomy
Come on.
comes.
Come on. Come on.
It really is
Yeah.
because that's just the reality, man. And it's a scary thing. It's a scary
It's
thing.
It can be scary. It can also be liberating in another sense. Because going back to what you said, and I understand. As I used to be an artist, and my
You
analogy.
are an artist,
Thank
bro.
you,
We're not
thank you.
gonna do that no more because y'all, when we was doing sound check, he dropped 12 bars. Like you, once you're an artist, you never stop being an artist. He
I
gonna rap about the ice cream on the, you know
there
what I
you go.
mean? He's still an artist,
I'm gonna
not a
own it.
salesman.
I am an artist. Yes, I am an artist. And, my biggest example of what you just said for me when I was making music was, I was scared to, pull the curtain back and let people know who I really am. I would say, I love going to a fancy restaurant, but I don't want to see how the food is made. So that was always my example. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is nice.
And
And the
there is
chair.
some truth to
And
that.
there is
And
some
there is
truth to
some
that,
truth
yeah.
to that.
So it is a dichotomy in a way because one side of you is saying, I'm an artist. I need to express myself. I need you to know my pain. I need you to know my story. But the other side is saying, I'm a human being. I'm not a toy for you to play with. I'm
No
not
doubt.
here to make you laugh or cry or feel an emotion, but yet we are. But understanding that, and I guess this is the silver lining I'm trying to make with this point, knowing that even though there will be people that will use it as entertainment, there are also people that are going to take your story of you and your mother just as sacred as you, because there are going to be real tears coming down those eyes, because there are real people in this life that have also lost their mother and or father or aunts, uncles to domestic violence, to abuse, and the story has to be amplified for other people to come forward and share their vulnerability. So you're doing one of the hardest things in the world, but I think it's also the most rewarding if you look at the silver lining, not at the negative minutia that we see on social media, that we see play out in TV.
Mm-hmm.
Strip all that away. I'm saying you as a man and as a son, finding peace with the story and sharing that so that other people can find peace in their story.
That's what I'm realizing. That's what I'm
Yeah.
realizing. I'm realizing that.
And that's happening every day now. Have you seen it
Yeah.
happen more and more? Anybody has said anything since the first part has come out?
I'm realizing, and it's funny because this is my second interview since it's come out, but even prior to its release, when I was just on the press run tour, I just realized how it really transcends me. It transcends me and my mom. I was doing this from a singular perspective. I was doing this because you know what? When I released the album, man, and I talk about this, I've been talking about this in the interviews where if anybody is familiar with grief, some days it feels like it happened when it happened, and some days it feel like it happened this morning.
This morning.
Some days it feels some Christmases are great and some Christmases are terrible.
Right.
Some Mother's Days, some anniversaries, you really never know. It's this silent partner that just lives with you consciously and subconsciously. And some days he shows up and some days he does it. And like I said, I realized once I released the album that maybe a few months in, I was like, I haven't had those bad days like I be having my bad days every couple of weeks.
Really?
And so I realized that me getting this story out, a man that's never been in therapy,
Please try it.
I am ashamed to say,
Please try
but
it,
I've
Jay.
never been in
Please.
therapy. But this had done something for me that was presumably what I believe people say about therapy. Releasing this album and telling this story had just been so liberating. I wasn't even conscious. It just wasn't until I realized, dang, I haven't had one of my days in a long time. It's always there.
Yeah.
You still have your moments, but I haven't had one of my days, and anybody that knows grief know those days. And so now here we are with to piggyback on a few points you made, but here we are with the docu-series, and I'm realizing, wow, so this is bigger than me. So now I'm talking about Black men dealing with grief with their moms. This is a topic that we just don't hear. We hear about Black men losing friends to gun violence. We hear about, Black men expressing all these other things, but we rarely hear about a Black man from a most probably sensitive perspective,
Yes.
to say how much they miss their mom. Like that may be frowned upon subconsciously because we supposed to be and we perceived as a certain way. But I'm opening a door that I ain't even know that I was telling the story. I didn't know that needed to be told for other
For other
people and not
people.
just for myself. So I'm finding that black men speaking about grief, men speaking about grief, the effects of it from a mental health perspective, and just not being afraid to be sensitive or expressive because I found a few other like men that lost their mom, and I'm like, wow, like this dude's really out here. It's even hard. It's something I'm not used to seeing.
Yeah.
I'm used to it just only being me or something that I deal with. But to see another young black dude talking about his mom on TikTok, expressing how he missed her and how he's dealing with and trying to explain the grief is like it's really been eye opening for me. That's like allowed me to realize that this is bigger than me. That it's a bigger conversation, maybe about domestic violence, maybe about being able to see the signs for other people that are being abused. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You're basically awakening the probably suppressed trauma that a lot of young black, Latino, I'll say white, like
yeah,
all,
yeah,
but really more mainly black and Latinos deal with it because we come from harsh upbringings as
for
men.
sure.
So, I remember my mom telling me, don't cry in front of them. Go to the bathroom.
Mm,
Or,
yeah.
even my wife, my stepson, she would tell him when he was little, go to the bathroom if you need to cry.
Mhm.
So we always
Mm,
had to show this image of strength
yeah.
when we were at our most weakest. And I think, people always say, oh, men have to be a certain way and women are a certain way. No, let's just say humans.
Human.
We're all human
We're all
and we all
human.
feel everything. And in therapy, they call it releasing the valve. So
Mhm.
I feel like what you're doing as far as this docu-series, as far as going back and seeing everything again, reliving it's almost like you're releasing the valve. And
Yeah.
and when you release the valve and you let it come out and the pain, you know, it's me personally is always good for a good cry. I feel like after you have a great cry, oh my God, I can go run a 10-mile jog. It's not a problem. You
Yeah.
feel like you're 10 pounds lighter,
Yeah, and
you
for
know?
me, not to cut you
No,
off,
no.
but for me, like I express in the trailer how I had a great village. I've been raised by women. I've been
Mm-hmm.
raised and taught to express my emotions and I'm used to doing that. However, I didn't know that also telling a story from a public perspective would release the valve. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
therapy today, y'all.
Yes,
Release the
y'all.
valve
I'm gonna make them go
on
now. I'm
another
just
on another level. So
yes.
that was just shocking to me because like you said, even as far as how we are perceived, it is so much pressure on us as men, and especially men of a minority, because we are expected to always be hard. That's a part of so
Yeah.
much of our identity. It's so much a part of how we're objectified. It's so much a part of how we're represented in media. And so, you know, even no shade to the women, even women can put that pressure on
Yeah.
men to not be that vulnerable because it come up in an argument later, or it's perceived as being soft, or
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying. So of course not all women, but I'm just saying that is a narrative, you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. And I think that narrative, sorry to cut you off, but to
Hmm.
piggyback off what you're saying, the whole, just imagine you trying to be hard all the time and be tough. That's a hard no pun
Yeah,
intended. That's a hard thing to do
no doubt.
because again, we're humans. We're human beings. We feel, we cry, we want to, sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad, etc. And one thing I've learned through my own traumas and going through therapy is suppressed trauma will always be played out in toxic behaviors.
Hmm.
So whatever you are suppressing, you will act it out in alcoholism, drugs, womanizing,
Yeah.
hurting people, hitting people.
Hmm.
That's all just suppressed trauma. And we
For
need to have
sure.
the bigger conversation, which is what's really hurting you.
For
Let's get
sure.
it out of you.
For sure.
Let's put it on the table. Let's look at it
Hmm.
and let's get over it. Because
Hmm.
once you're able to deal with the pain and the trauma, and again, I told you off camera, I've been going to therapy for 4 years. I have my good days and bad days, but I got a backpack mentally
Yeah.
that I can go to and say, okay, I'm
Pull
feeling like
from.
this. Okay, where is this coming from? Oh, okay, I know it.
Mm.
So having like a guy, like a,
Yeah, that's
a,
that's another thing. Men not being able to have a vocabulary to identify
Yeah.
emotions, which is the biggest thing. If you a bigger part of what they say, the beginning of solution is understanding what the problem is. So
Yes.
like a lot of times, if you never even had the vocabulary to identify this thing that you're feeling, then you suppress more, or you use the one emotion of anger that you
Mm-hmm.
can, relegate it to, and act it out in that way, as you said. So I think it's a very interesting concept. Not only have as men, we're not usually allowed to be expressive or hurt harm expressive, or express that we're hurt, or we're sad, or we're upset, or we're feeling not as confident at times. If we don't have the vocabulary, then we really don't even know how to deal with it, even with ourselves, let alone
Yeah.
expressing it to somebody else. You know
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And what happens is when a man doesn't understand how to express it, he's gonna go to anger.
No doubt.
And that's where situations happen of domestic violence, where people, it's good people that make bad decisions,
No doubt.
and those decisions, they can really spiral into something that can be, for your rest of your life, something you're always going to be sorry for, you're going to have to always pay for. But it's controlling that anger. And I feel like Latinos and Black in specific, we have a lot of anger, I guess, from our past and
Hmm.
from our traumas. You opening this conversation about domestic violence with your own mother, even though as hard as that might be, it is gonna definitely heal
Hmm.
some people that need to hear this story. And I think, you are the catalyst for that.
Thank
That
you,
that
bro.
that has to be said, because
Thank you.
everyone is going through pain right now, and we're living in an age where everything's microwave.
Hmm.
People show you a side of them, not the true self.
Nope.
So you stepping over that boundary and saying, nope, I don't care. I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna tell you my story. I think that's very powerful. And I
It's
think that
scary.
it's scary, yeah, because it's like taking that step where you don't feel the stare, and and you're like, oh, am I gonna fall? You
Yeah.
ever almost fell down?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, and then that's kind of how it is. You're always
Facts.
gonna land on your feet,
Facts.
and again, as hard as it might be, as a friend and a brother, I'll tell you, man, it is probably the most freeing thing you can do
Hmm.
as an artist and as a person.
Thank you,
You
brother.
know, um, I've been wanting to ask you this. Do you forgive the guy that killed your mom?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I think, if I'll be completely honest, because he's dead.
Okay, so he's passed
Um,
away. Okay,
yes, yes. So I think I would readily say yes, I have forgiven him, but I truly believe, and I truly feel that when somebody's not around to confront you, or around to offend you or do those things, it's a lot easier to
yes,
forgive
it
them.
is easier to forgive. Yeah.
So I'm not saying that I'm copping out or whatever, but in theory, the idea, I feel like I do. However, I don't focus on him a lot.
Okay.
Um, I don't have a lot of emotions tied to him. And if he was here, I probably wouldn't. If I'll be honest,
Okay.
I probably wouldn't be in that space to forgive him. I think, for context, it was put out in the media as a double murder. Um,
What?
yeah, my mom, she was murdered and she died on the scene. She was pronounced dead.
Uh-huh.
He lived for about 10 days. And so it's a lot that I'm gonna eventually get into.
Right.
But my mom was abused. It was a classic domestic violence case. And like I tell people, for context, my mom was about 112 pounds, about 5'6". This dude was like 6'4", like 250.
Jesus.
So my mom had suffered seizures from head trauma prior to. She had restraining orders. She had eyewitness abuse. So like the concept, the idea of it being a double murder, uh, you know, for me, thankfully,
It's
she tried to protect herself. And he also had a history of harming himself as well.
right.
So that is kind of vague, but it's really like I'm thankful that she protected herself and didn't put me in a position to see him walk in the streets after 20 years
Right.
of, they give you life and you really do like 25 years
Yeah, and
maybe,
they let you
and
go.
then you back now you back walking the street because you paid your debt to society, and
Right.
that who knows what position that will put me in. I know what
Correct.
position to put me in. You know what I'm saying? So if there's any silver lining in this, I think that's probably one of the biggest things. So, you know, to say I forgive him, I could say I have, but like in another scenario, who knows, man?
Right.
I probably wouldn't if I be honest.
You know, I think it takes a lot of courage to say that because a lot of people would have sat in that couch and say, "Yes, I forgive him," and I just
Mm-mm.
listen, we're
Yeah,
human, like I said.
yeah.
So me being a Christian, there's a lot of people in my life right now that I know I have to forgive and I don't. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a process. I have
Mm-hmm.
to deal with that. And again, it has nothing to do with life and death in your situation, which is a little bit harder to handle. But the fact that at least you know that now that he's not here, you do forgive him and you can work towards more of a peace of mind. I
Mm-hmm.
think we're in the first building block of that. But
Mm-hmm.
as you progress in life, as you get older, as we get wiser, there may be down the road a more settling resolution where you're like, you know what? Yeah, I really am
Yeah, and I
forgiving,
think I'm also in a place of I just really never, and it's funny, nobody's ever really asked me that, but I really never, whenever I grieve or whenever I am, he is just so not a factor. Like
Right, right.
it's just like I don't even think about him. I don't have any like. There aren't even really no really angry emotions towards him.
Mhm.
He just is like it happened and it's almost like I don't even.
You don't
He's
exist
like
to me.
yeah, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just not even because in order to really be angry at people, my opinion, I feel like you have to kind of be invested in them. You need
Mhm.
to kind of care about them.
Yeah.
So he's just like a dark figure
Face
to me that's
faded.
just yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm always focused on my mom. I'm always thinking about her. I'm always thinking about just her, and when it comes to forgiving people, uh I did an interview with the judge that let him out of jail,
Mhm.
um in creating this process and this documentary.
Okay.
So my mom had did a restraining order. Anybody knows in domestic violence, whenever you threaten to leave, not anybody, I shouldn't say that, but it is very common that in domestic violence situations, when women threaten to leave or when they report to authorities, it heightens the abuse, and sometimes fatally. And that's what happened with my mom. And uh, this dude, he had already was on probation from a drug charge. She did the restraining order, but the papers had not been served to him.
Mhm.
But at the time, she had, was basically running from him, and he was stalking her. And the week it happened, he actually had went around looking for her and was telling people when he see her, he'll kill her. And so one of the people he told called the cops, and the cops came and they found him in front of our home with a loaded
Wow.
gun waiting for us to get
Wow.
home. So in that time, he still wasn't served the restraining order, but he was on probation with the loaded gun. He went to
Unbelievable.
jail. This was on Thanksgiving week. Uh, he got arraigned, and the judge that arraigned him let him out of jail within maybe 6 hours of him being arrested. And this judge, we just for all these years, my family couldn't realize what would be the logic in letting a felon
Out on the street.
out on the
Yeah.
street, even if you didn't know about the restraining order, even if he's on probation, he from a drug charge, he
It's a
got a loaded
violation.
gun. It's a automatic. It's not even a question. And so I had that conversation with this judge because this judge happened to have been friends with my grandmother early in like we're from a small
Really?
town.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's a crazy story, right?
Sheesh.
This judge had been friends with my grandmother and my grandfather, small town. And you know, he had been trying to contact my grandmother after this all went down. My mom, I call my grandma mom. She
Mm-hmm.
never, would hear him out, or, it's like, So we arranged a meeting as I was creating this docu series,
Mm-hmm.
and I just got to confront him and ask him those questions, and he basically, in so many words, just copped out. And this is recently. This is like
Wow.
2022. He's just like, yeah, I just didn't know, and he turned his life to Christ, so he was giving me a lot of religious rhetoric, and just was not accountable, and so that was one of the people I knew I wanted to speak with, but I knew prior to that I had to prepare myself emotionally and spiritually, that if I had this conversation, you already know what he's done, and you
Mm-hmm.
already know there's not really a valid excuse. So when you talk to him, be prepared for
Not taking
not
accountability.
accountability.
Did he say I'm sorry?
He did say he was sorry if he did anything wrong.
That's like,
It was like one of them apologies. So
yeah.
it was very disappointing. But that's what I was speaking of earlier, how I knew I needed to have these conversations. But had I had that conversation before that time in my life, I may have done something that I ain't gonna say I wouldn't been proud of it, but I may have done
Mm-hmm.
something that maybe didn't represent me in the best way in
Correct.
response to that.
Correct.
Or, I may have acted out of anger or in retaliation, or so I just wasn't prepared until the time that I was prepared. And then when that moment finally happens, now you gotta
Now you
process
gotta
that
process
shit.
that,
You
yeah.
know what I'm
Because what
saying?
happens is, again, it's like the trauma, the anger, the people will always let you down. So I always tell people,
Yeah.
don't ever depend on somebody. Everyone's gonna let you down one time or another.
Yep.
It's how you react to
For
whatever it is that's
sure.
coming towards you. And as human beings, right, we're flawed. So the judge might feel like I didn't say nothing wrong to him, and you
Yeah.
are offended, and
Yeah.
it's like you're
Yeah.
never going to get to a point. So
Yeah.
forgive, move on, find peace within yourself, because getting somebody, it's like arguing about politics and religion.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people will always have their side,
And if they
but
don't want to be accountable, there's nothing
yes,
you could do about it.
accountability, people that don't take accountability for their wrongdoings, it's because they also have some suppressed trauma that they are not dealing with. So we're all on the same ride here, guys.
No
We are
doubt.
all on the same ride,
No
but
doubt.
some people keep throwing up because they had too much to eat and they got to let it
No
go.
doubt.
And this is what's happening. So until they start to really deal with what it is that's going inside of them, you're
Mhm.
always going to have people treat you a certain way because of the suppressed trauma that they have towards themselves, and no accountability. Nope, I'm perfect. I did
Mhm.
nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And then
And
they make
then
you act out.
yeah, and then to kind of like as a man of faith, as I am myself, we understand the concept of Christianity and our relationship with God enough to understand that I knew that my posture in that meeting was, I was one, giving this man an opportunity. I was going for closure for me and my mom, my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother. But I also knew that, like, in the grand scheme of things, I know that the bed that he made is he's gonna have to lay in it. In
Yes.
other words, I wanted to represent Christ in the best way in that scenario, so that I won't add no more fuel to that fire, or I won't diminish him as as the villain and me as the victim. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
add. I don't want to. And I hope y'all understand what I'm saying when I say, like, I don't want to get out of my space of being a victim and become a villain too. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just knew that, like, being in that meeting and my relationship with God was to, I wasn't there to give him an opportunity or an out. I was there to get accountability and for some sort of closure. But I also knew that the way I conducted myself was would be a testament to how much faith I have in God. And
Yes.
when they say in the word, like, the battle's not yours, it's the Lord's, meaning, like, I don't have to try to fight this thing. I could let him say what he want, embarrass himself, sound stupid, not take accountability, all those different things, and then I don't gotta add to that. If you just, that's what I'm trying to say. I
Yeah.
found it.
No, you
If
got
you
it.
just
Yeah.
allow people to be who they are. You don't have to add nothing to it.
You can just let them keep talk. Yeah.
Let them keep talking and let them not take accountability and let them be a fool and let them be the offender if that's the posture that they'll have. I gave this man an opportunity. I'm sitting here, we in front of you. Been trying to get in touch with my grandma for the last 23 years since it happened, and now she's in front of you. You have the opportunity to live up or you could drop the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so in essence, that's what he did. But I had prepared myself
Mentally,
mentally
spiritually,
and
to
spiritually to be in
yeah.
that conversation, if that makes sense.
And no, that's a very. I hate to say the word high road, but it's also high faith.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
yeah,
high
yeah.
faith of you to do that because, they also say, don't argue with a fool because people from a distance
Fools
can't
argue
tell
with
who is
fools,
who.
bro.
So that's also in the Bible. So
No doubt.
there is a higher calling for you, not just as an artist, but as a human being that God is pruning you for.
True
And
wisdom.
and yeah, and you are gonna get tested as the pruning continues. You
Mm,
will continue to get tested, and it's in those tests that you got to sit. It's so funny because I'm relating it to therapy. It's like you got to sit in the pain and really deal with it, and that's the true test to get you to where God wants you to go next.
no doubt.
So, in my opinion, right, hearing this and the docu-series, I think this docu-series could just be one small mustard seed that can grow into something that I don't even think you're ready for it.
I don't either,
You
bro.
know?
That's I'm getting a inkling of it. Like I
Yes.
said, we live in such a, not to keep bringing up God, but like
Nah, it's
we live in our world and we live in such a linear, singular perspective. But
mm-hmm.
God has a way of creating your thing to fit perfectly into a void that's needed for so many other things. Like we think of God doing one thing, but he's usually doing 10,000 things in that one thing that's connected to it.
Yes, yes,
You know what
yes,
I'm
yes.
saying? And so
100%.
I'm just starting to be able to get out of my trauma enough to be able to see like, oh, it's not all about me
Mm-hmm.
and my trauma. Oh snap. So I could, one journalist I was just talking to, he was like, I think you need to go on a tour and go to women's shelter. Somebody else,
Mm.
been telling me about, or my manager's been working on different things with like just trying to go into the field of awareness for domestic violence. That's never ever even been a, I just lived in
You
it.
just live
I
in it,
just
but
lived
you
in it.
haven't externalized
I
it.
have not external. It's
Like,
never been about anybody else. It's been about me and my mom. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
absolutely.
And so then that's where the whole God pruning you and purposing you and taking you through those things and aligning your purpose in that way that, to coincide with what you just said, like bigger than maybe what I can perceive. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Absolutely, man.
Especially because of how painful and dark it is. How
Yeah.
could this ever be? You do this intentionally or allow this intentionally for me to be used for maybe millions of other people.
Have you ever thought? I mean, I don't know if this discussion came up with you or your manager, but have you guys thought about doing a nonprofit organization for domestic violence, like survivors?
I had an inkling of it years ago, but I just wasn't in a space, and I don't think I'm still in a space, resources wise,
Mm-hmm.
to really do it at the scale that I initially envisioned
Envision
it.
it.
But I think where this is going is like, we can look at it like this, or we could just do the day to day ministry. We could do the just, I'm gonna go here and I could talk to these women, or I can go to this school, or I can be used in what may be perceived as in a smaller way, but could be mustard seed
Mustard
like,
seed, like,
that
yes,
could be
sir.
planting a seed where I tell a story at a shelter and this mom might have a 6-year old like I was, and that could be the one thing that clicks, you know what I'm saying, by
Yeah,
just seeing me. And if that if that's a possibility, then I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I haven't figured out all of the ins and outs, but like I said, literally just was in this last week in this press run, I realized that it happens to be bigger than me. That like, oh, maybe I could really be a change for so many other people, and not just music fans, not just my album going number one, not
Mm-hmm.
just me giving money to you know less fortunate, but
Right.
I could, this domestic violence thing could be something else,
And you never know what road will lead you to where you really want to be, right? Like it can all
for
come back
sure.
full circle. Like, you're focused on your music, you're focused on telling your story, you're focused on being an artist, but there's also this angle of trauma and suppressed trauma,
Yeah,
and how this can open up not just the world of helping people in domestic violence, but also open up your music career even more
for
further than
sure.
what you thought it can go.
Right.
So it's all kind of like a machine working
Yeah,
together, and all you have to do is be present in the moment and just
yeah,
walk in it and just
yeah.
say, listen, I'm going to always be myself. I'm going to be honest, truthful, respectful, forthcoming.
Mhm.
And whatever happens after that, at least I know in my heart, I'm doing the right thing that I need to do,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's interesting. That's interesting because, like, as businessmen, as entrepreneurs, as creatives, we're always trying to figure out the next thing or the next way,
Mm-hmm.
especially as an entrepreneur,
Yes.
because as an entrepreneur, you are blazing a trail. Like, you literally are like cutting weeds down in front of you, because we just live in a society, even though it's trendy to be an entrepreneur, society or at large is still not conducive for an entrepreneurial lifestyle. And so I think sometimes I'm always trying to figure out the way to go, the best way to set myself up,
Mm-hmm.
when it's like, to what you said, like this could be something that opens that door, and it's not a field that I have to go do research on because I
Yes, because
lived
you
it.
lived
It's
it.
not I'm not going around talking about this is the best way to make content. This is where social media is going, and hoping that coincides with my music career. But I'm talking about grief and domestic violence and depression and suicidal thoughts and all those different things. I could write volumes of books on that. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? So, and that's just natural. Like that'll
Yeah.
just come from experience. You know what I mean?
Wow, man. So, I just, like I
I'm an
said,
OG with the grief.
yeah.
Like,
And he rhymed.
yeah.
So I know we joked about it earlier, but I mean, have you thought about maybe starting to go to therapy?
I have. I'll be completely honest, and the only reason I'm okay with being this honest is because I feel like my experience is going to be relative for any other men. Some men that haven't been to therapy. Part of the reason is laziness, um, and fear. So like one side is like I I've heard that like you gotta date around for therapists. Like
Hmm.
I've heard that
Yes.
like some people have had 5 10 therapists before they found their one. I'm too lazy for that at this moment. With all the different things that I have going on, if I'm just being honest. And then the other side is fear. Am I really ready to unpack everything? So I think those two things is like and then, cause that childhood trauma work its way in all different areas of your life, in your
Right.
romantic relationships, your relationships with women, your relationships with how all those different things. And so I think it's a conglomerate of the two for me. But I felt like if I found a therapist, if I got over that hump, I probably would be more prone to it. But like I heard
Hmm.
that like dudes like be, man, I ain't really like my first therapist
Yeah.
because they wasn't this, and I had to shop around, and I'm like doing that over and over to find the right therapist. I'm just being honest. For me right now, I just be like, I don't got the energy.
And I think a
You
lot of
know what I
people don't
mean?
really want to have that conversation because
Yeah.
I'll tell you from experience, my first therapist sucked. I couldn't stand the sight of him. After 2 sessions, I left. The second therapist, I was gun shy. I was fearful. Who's my therapist now? And God bless her, she has been a blessing in my life. And when I was going to meet her, I did a no call no show. I didn't go to the office. I didn't call her nothing.
Uh,
She called me up upset. She was like, "You had an appointment with me. You didn't come by, etc." And she said, "You need help. When I spoke to you on the phone, I can tell right away you need to sit down with somebody." So I mustered up all that fear
mm,
and went into that office. I had a breakthrough the second time I met her, and I've been hooked ever since. So again, it wasn't easy. It took about a good 6 months
yeah.
for me to land in that space. Because once I left
Yeah.
the first therapist, I was like, man, I'm gonna take a break from this. Like it felt like a job.
Yeah.
But I think the conversation has to be had that it's okay to not click with a therapist. It's okay.
Mm.
It's okay to take time to find the right therapist. Don't feel like this is a race. And I
Yeah.
do feel like you, as since you're not going to therapy, I still feel like you're doing such a great job
Mhm.
by using whatever trauma and pain and mobilizing it for something positive. So
Mhm.
again, it's not like you're just sitting around like you're
Yeah.
really doing something positive with your life, and it
And I need a
shows.
therapist too. Thank you, man. I
Yeah.
need a therapist that's like not too religious and spiritual to be a little natural, and somebody that's not too natural that's still a fit. If that makes
You have
sense.
to
I need a
connect.
nice
You have
that's
to
just for
connect.
me. I know
Yes.
people I don't want a Christian therapist, but I want a therapist that's a Christian. If
I
that
hear
makes
you. No, it
sense. You know what
makes a
I'm
lot of sense.
saying?
Yeah, yeah. Because
And
you,
so those are and I know that's possible. I'm not saying that's not possible, but um and then too, like I'm an artist, and I guess maybe everybody has those feelings. But I feel like as an artist, I'm just naturally more in tune with my emotions. I'm
yes,
naturally more analytical, or I overthink a lot,
me
all those
too.
different things. So uh I need an artist, a therapy that's going to take that walk with me. Um, but with the way my life is now, man, I literally feel like some days I'm racing all day, like between like practicing, trying to keep my prayer and devotions right, keep my fitness right, my diet right, my businesses.
Hmm.
Bro, my days are so packed. And I'm even trying to, like, right now I'm working on how I can pick back up taking lessons, like piano lessons,
Hmm.
guitar lessons. Cause I taught myself, but then I took lessons, and then, like, I was just like, I don't have time, but I still practice every day. So I'm even trying to figure out how I can zero that in. You know what I'm saying? On top of just the daily demands of being a homeowner and family, and kind of keep creating content.
Hmm.
Bro, it's
It's
like,
hard.
it's
It's
hard,
hard.
bro.
It's
It's
hard.
so
Yeah.
hard.
Life, it's so many like different, layers of life. And,
Mm-hmm.
besides being financially stable, physically stable, all the things you just said, how do you balance all that? It's hard. It's a
It's
juggling act every day. And I think having obviously the peace in your heart and
mm-hmm.
your mind is number one,
For sure.
and knowing what you need to do, and
Mm-hmm.
just don't be so hard on yourself. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do what I can with the 24 hours I have.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I wake up tomorrow morning, first thing I say when I wake up, Lord, thank you, another day.
Yeah.
Because we don't even know if we get that. But once we get
Definitely.
that, now you can just try to do the best you can do with what you have. And if you didn't succeed for the day what you wanted to do, it's okay. If you did, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a constant grind as human beings, and
Yeah.
just
And I
dealing and
think,
pushing through
my
it.
manager tells me all the time, like, bro, like, you did. I'll be like, I ain't do nothing today. He be like, you did, da 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 da.
Hmm.
And I'll be like,
Yeah.
but I think I've been learning to start to embrace that chaos in my head, because I realized that, like, when you really see something bigger for yourself, a lot of times you just don't have rest. A lot of times
Yes.
you just are not restful from a spiritual perspective, because it's so much, like that. Like, it's a meme out where they say, like, this is my brain, and it's a screenshot of a computer screen with like 100 tabs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
swear on everything, that's like my brain most of the time. But I do realize that, like, shout out to, I just finished this book called The One Thing by
Okay.
Gary Keller. You got to check it
I
out.
got the one thing.
The One Thing. It's
Okay.
it's about focusing on the thing, or like, it diminishes the concept that multitasking, that's impossible. You cannot
No.
multitask. You could do one thing and another thing, but even when you're doing two things, like, you're not doing both of those things at the best of your ability. It's impossible for humans to
That's
do
true.
that.
You're bugging me out right now. 'Cause I think my
Yeah,
wife read that book.
she probably
Because she was
did.
telling me about it, but I listened,
She,
but I love you, babe. I listened, but she did mention that about the
yeah,
multitasking.
yes,
Like,
yes.
you can't. It's impossible for a human being to multitask.
It's impossible. It is literally impossible. And so it's been like, it introduces the concept of, if you if what is the one thing you could do, that if that went well, you can either pay somebody else to do that other stuff, or the other stuff wouldn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mm.
just I'm learning to like be like, all right, I can't do everything, but I did
Yeah.
this, and that's the most important,
I love that, man. And that's something, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and just I was just gonna say, and then just trusting that God fills in whatever gaps we can. Like God only wants us to just put effort forward, and like He'll fill in the gaps. And so that's
Yes.
where your trusting and faith comes from. So I'm just trying to balance it all, man. I'm
We
trying to
all
balance
are,
it
brother.
all.
We all are. I mean, as a creative myself and as a high motivated person, I deal with the same thing you just said.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to sit and enjoy, like, my wife makes fun of me. Like, I like on a Sunday, I like to relax, watch a game, drink a little tequila, and I be feeling bad about it. Like, oh man, but I'm not being productive right now. But I'm not doing nothing. Oh my God, I'm gonna
Bro.
lose. Like, I'll sit, and my wife's like, you worked hard, you've done this,
Right.
you've done, like, how your manager does to you. You deserve to relax. That's why, when I'm on vacation, it's even hard for me. Like vacation, I'm up at 6 in the morning, I'm in the gym,
Bro.
I'm productive. So,
Bro.
but even that is so hard to stay still. But wise man once said, when you have a moment to sit, just sit. And that's what I
Mm.
feel like all of us need to do in this room.
Yeah.
Plus anybody in this world, because it's just too, life is fast, life is crazy. The minute you walk out of that door, you don't know what to expect.
Especially when you realize the concept of you're like the FOMO, like fear of missing
Yes,
out.
yes,
We're
that's a real
always
thing.
going to miss out.
Yes, we're always gonna miss out.
I saw somebody say on TikTok, it was like, you can have anything you want in the world, but you can't have everything. So you have to pick
Mm.
whatever is the most valuable to you. Like, if you're going to be the biggest star in the world, you're probably not going to have anomaly, or what's that word where like you have that much privacy.
Yeah,
If you want
anonymity. Yeah.
anonymity,
Yep.
anonymity, yeah,
Anonymity.
Anonymous.
It's a
Remember that
hard one.
Finding Nemo? But yeah, so like you lose that. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be a master at piano, like I do, then there is a lot of things that you will have to sacrifice. You can have it, but it's just the reality. And
Mhm.
so, just like really trusting that God will just provide and everything will work out the way that it should is like the challenge, but the exciting part. So
I love it, brother.
yeah,
Man, I know we got a couple minutes left. You
yeah.
got to
Sorry
head
about
out,
that.
but I got two more questions for you.
Okay.
What's after the docu-series? What's next?
Well, it's funny because the docuseries kind of intruded in a rollout that I've been preparing for the last 6 months. But what I've been doing is, 23 is like the project of my life. Of course, I'll have more albums, but this has been foundational for me as an artist. Not my first album, but it is my first album that I produced solely, mixed, wrote everything, engineered the whole project myself. So, we live in a world where nobody really listens to albums,
Yeah.
and certainly even when albums was out, you wasn't getting 23 songs on the
Yeah.
album. So, my approach has been now more so is creating my own tiny desk,
Oh, I like it.
my own, because as we talk, content is
Content
is,
is
is
king.
everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, if y'all ain't bang with this song, the regular version, I got a piano version, I got acoustic version. I made my directorial debut technically with this docu series, but
You
I have
directed the docu-series.
yeah, I did.
Edited
I
everything.
edited.
That's
I scripted
amazing.
everything. I even did the score. That's what I'm most proud
Stop.
of. The
It looks
score,
like
man.
it feels like a Netflix documentary. Like,
Thank
it's
you,
very
man.
professionally made.
I've been
man.
hearing that. And
That's amazing.
it's
Seriously.
crazy. It's crazy. I've been hearing
Wow.
that a lot. And I'm like, I wasn't
Wow.
expecting that. Like, but yeah, so that was my directorial debut. But I have kind of directed my videos and some of the stuff that I have in the can now that will be released late summer and the fall. I've directed completely on my own as well. I colored, edited,
Nice.
and then I like set design. And so like that's what's in the working. So
That's so
like
cool, man.
the docu-series is gonna open the door a bit more, but I got some things, and this next era is indicative of like a more grown R&B sexy. I got black hair now. I used to rock the red hair. So I'm just
Red, I
going
remember.
for a
Yeah. Grown and
more
sexy.
grown and sexy vibe, and not because of anything other than that's just where I'm evolving to. So I'm just excited to for this next era for everybody to see.
I'm excited too. New music, new vibes. You're
Yeah.
extra exfoliated today. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
so I
You're
gotta tell you my
shining.
secret, and you are going to be so.
What's the
Before we
secret?
started, he was like, "Bro," he's like, "You gotta come in secret." I was like, when the camera's rolling, I'm gonna tell you the secret. What I do now is I wash my face. I ain't gonna admit how dirty I was.
That's it. Just wash the
bro,
face.
I get up, I wash when I'm in the shower, but like I actually have face soap now, and I wash it every morning when I get up. I know people used to like some people wipe their face with their nice
with water or whatever. Yeah,
but nah, I used to just get up, brush my teeth, wipe my eyes, whatever. Now I actually wash my face with face soap, and I put face lotion on, not regular lotion, like
right,
lotion
face
that's
lotion.
for
It's for the face.
and that's it, bro. Because I don't have a lot. I don't have time. We talk about time.
Yeah, this guy is just the exfoliation king right here. So I'm learning. It's
so
that simple. Wash your face.
Just wash your face, bro. Get your own washcloth, a face washcloth, not the body one. You gotta have one for the body and one for the face. The face washcloth and just a little depends. If your skin is more oily, get something that's going to dry it out. If your skin is a little drier, get something that's going to put some moisture on it and some lotion. And that's
I learned a lesson today, man.
Yeah, bro. Your wife, she probably got all these products.
She got all the products in the house. I just don't use them.
Yeah. I know, but
wow,
that's the trick. But yeah.
Well, listen, man, I'm blessed to have you back on, brother. And I know we made it happen. We all have a tight schedule today. I appreciate you coming out. Normally, I always end my podcast with the mastermind questions, but you already answered that on the first go around. So I want to ask you just one more last question, and we'll close with this. What is the legacy you want for Shannon Springfield, for your mom?
I want the world to see and feel just how amazing her spirit is. I want the world to see and feel. Everybody talks about their person that they love that passed, but I got the footage to back it up. Like, she was fire. Like, she was lit. Like, she was a vibe. And I'm just so grateful that I'm able to share this sacredness with the world. And now y'all see, when you watch the docu-series, you'll just see just how magnetic and infectious her smile was, her energy. And when I get authors that have come up to me that have written poems and pieces about her, or people telling me how she inspired them in so many ways, still to this day, I have the footage. Y'all get to see her face, hear her voice, and just experience her energy for just a bit in this docu-series. And I think even bigger than her is she lived her life and she lost her life so that perhaps I would be able to spread awareness to save so many other lives. And so I think that's probably more of what God's legacy for her is. And so I'm just grateful to be walking and aligned with that.
Oh, that's a beautiful answer, man. And you are definitely making your mother proud, brother.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here,
I
Jay. I appreciate you, man. Last thing, where can they find the docu-series? Where can they find you?
Well, I'm Jamai, Jamai. My website is jamai.me, and I'm on all socials at Jamai Music. That's LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And the docu-series, the 23 docu-series is out and will continue to be out on YouTube, and as well as the album 23, where I express my mom's story. And this docu-series coincides with the album, so you can download the album. It's 23 songs of all different genres, from reggae, Afrobeat, doo-wop, opera, R&B, baby making R&B. It's anywhere you can stream music, so check it out. And thank you for having me, bro.
Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure having you back, man. Thank you, man. Well, guys, that's Jamai, and that is a wrap on episode 23 of I'm an Artist, Not a Salesman podcast. If this podcast inspired or moved you to follow your dreams or aspirations, please subscribe to our Apple, Spotify, and YouTube platforms by typing in Luis Guzman, I'm an Artist, Not a Salesman, and clicking that subscribe button. Please make sure to follow my Instagram handle, I'm an Artist, Not a Salesman, for further content and updates. I am thankful for every listener, and I pray you have a blessed one, not a stressed one. Peace.
Don't ever go, never leave my side. Passion's all I have, courage is my drive. And if I lost you, I would lose it all together. I wouldn't have composure to get it back together.